This video might hurt, but it's exactly what you need to see before you waste years of your life. Some women are not looking for love. They're looking for power, and they get it by using men who don't know they're being played. This isn't about hating women. This is about calling out the silent ways some of them dominate weak men. They do it through emotions, guilt, attention, and silence. And if you're not awake, you'll lose your identity. You'll think you're in love, but what you really are is trapped. Men stay silent about this because the world doesn't believe them. But I do. And if you're watching this, maybe deep down, you know something's off in your life too. So listen carefully, because if you miss these 7 signs, you may never get your confidence or your time back. And when you're done, subscribe to Stoic 95, where we don't sugarcoat reality, we master it. I know a man named Alex. Quiet strength. Built himself from the ground up. No shortcuts, no handouts. Started freelancing from his bedroom. Turned it into a real business. Took care of his parents. Stayed loyal to his word. The kind of man people lean on. Then came Zara. Beautiful, soft-spoken, made him feel seen in a way no one had before. It felt like magic at first. Then the comments started. Why didn't you reply quicker? You always choose work over me. He thought it was love. Thought compromise was part of building something real. So he gave in, pulled back from the hustle, made more room for her. But it was never enough. If he made plans without her, tears. If he needed space, cold silence. Sometimes she'd block him, vanish, then come back like nothing happened. The cycle kept spinning. Slowly, Alex faded. The driven, focused man turned hesitant, anxious, unsure of his own gut. He wasn't building anymore. He was managing her emotions, trying to keep the peace. Zara wasn't a partner. She was a manipulator. And Alex? He was the one being played. This kind of story, it's not rare. It's everywhere. Men just don't talk about it. They carry it, quietly, alone. But that silence keeps them stuck. That's why we're done being quiet. This is for the men who've been blamed, guilt, twisted up, and torn down. These are the 7 tactics women use to control men, and how to take your power back. Number 1. Emotional guilt tripping. This is how emotional guilt tripping works. Slow, subtle, and corrosive. She doesn't come at you with rage or demands. She twists the narrative so that you feel wrong for simply existing outside her orbit. You're working hard, building your future, doing what any healthy person should do, but suddenly, that's a problem. She calls you distant. She says you've changed. You're left second-guessing whether ambition is selfish. You go out to see your friends, nothing crazy, just time with people who matter to you. And you come back to cold silence or a sad story about how you're ignoring her. It's not that she's asking for more attention directly. No, that would be too obvious. She wants you to feel it in your chest, to question your priorities, to choose her over everything else because anything less feels like betrayal. That's the trap. It's not love. It's control dressed up as hurt feelings. The worst part? It works. You start canceling plans, working less, checking your phone more. Not because you want to, but because you don't want to feel guilty. She's flipped the script on what caring looks like. Instead of support, she uses your empathy against you. It's not open manipulation, it's emotional chess. And she's already thinking 5 moves ahead. You believe giving more of yourself will calm things down, bring peace. But all it does is reinforce the pattern. Every time you compromise your life to soothe her feelings, you teach her that guilt gets results. Now she doesn't need to control you with arguments. She can do it with silence, a sigh, a single "you've changed." That's the handover point. That's when your choices stop being yours. You no longer act based on what's best for you or even best for the relationship. You act to avoid disappointing her. The second guilt starts dictating your decisions, the balance is gone. It's not about partnership anymore. It's about preservation. And once that line's been crossed, climbing back to emotional freedom takes real work. Because it's not just about breaking free from her control. It's about unlearning the lie that prioritizing yourself is something to feel guilty about in the first place. Number 2, withholding love as punishment. Withholding love as punishment isn't random, it's calculated. She doesn't scream or slam doors. She just flips a switch. One moment, she's affectionate, caring, warm. The next, she's ice. Not because you hurt her, but because you didn't obey. You said no to something. You set a boundary. You made a decision that didn't align with what she wanted. And just like that, the connection is gone. Silence, distance, indifference. You find yourself scrambling, trying to figure out what you did wrong, how to fix it, how to bring back the version of her that actually treated you like a partner. But that's the game. She wants you confused, off balance. She wants you chasing the approval that she holds just out of reach. Intimacy becomes a reward, not a natural part of the relationship. If you behave, she'll smile again. Be soft again. Maybe you'll even get a hug or a kind word. But if you challenge her, question her, or prioritize your own needs, cold shoulder. Every time, over and over, until you learn. Keep your mouth shut if you want peace. And that's not love, that's training. Like a dog learning tricks. She's teaching you that love is conditional, that emotional safety comes at the cost of obedience. But here's the truth. Real relationships aren't built on compliance. They're built on mutual respect, trust, and support. Even when things get tense. Even when you disagree. Love doesn't vanish when it's inconvenient. It doesn't get yanked away like a toy when you say something she doesn't like. When someone uses affection as a reward system, they're not nurturing connection, they're asserting dominance. And it works, because we're wired to seek closeness, especially from the people we care about. She knows that. She banks on it. So every withdrawal of warmth feels like a crisis, and every small return feels like relief. That cycle, pain, then relief, is how she keeps you hooked. It's emotional blackmail dressed up as just needing space. And the longer it goes on, the more you shrink to avoid setting her off. You forget what consistent love even looks like. But here's the bottom line. Love that disappears when you stand your ground was never real to begin with. It was a tool. And once you see that, the spell breaks. Number 3, twisting masculinity into toxicity. This tactic goes deeper. It's not about behavior, it's about identity. She doesn't just argue with your choices, she targets who you are. Slowly, deliberately, she starts labeling your masculine traits as threats. Your calmness under pressure? Cold. Your ability to lead, to make decisions with clarity? Suddenly, that's aggressive. She flips the narrative until logic becomes insensitivity, ambition becomes selfishness, and your self-control becomes a red flag. And it's not genuine concern, it's strategy. This isn't about growth or healthy communication. It's about softening you. She's trying to dull the traits that make you resilient, confident, grounded. Because the more you question yourself, the easier you are to shape. That's the goal. Rewriting your definition of masculinity so thoroughly that you start to feel guilty for even standing tall. So you shrink. You silence your instincts. You avoid conflict, avoid leading, avoid being decisive, all to avoid being labeled toxic. But here's the trick. Once you surrender that edge, you're not safe. You're just easier to control. You become passive. You hesitate. You second-guess everything you do. And she takes the wheel. Because that version of you, the defanged, apologetic, uncertain man, is easier to manage. This isn't about equality. It's about dominance through shame. She's not trying to meet you in the middle. She's trying to dismantle your sense of self and rebuild it into something she can manipulate. And what's worse, she cloaks it in the language of moral superiority. Makes it seem like you are the problem, like your strength is dangerous. But masculinity isn't the enemy. Stoicism, ambition, leadership, these are not flaws. They're not toxic. They're tools. And in the hands of a grounded man, they're powerful, protective, and stabilizing. When someone attacks those traits, not out of fear but out of a desire to control, You need to see that for what it is. It's not empowerment. It's erosion. Real partners don't make you shrink. They challenge you to sharpen, to grow, to own your masculinity with integrity, not shame. The second you start apologizing for being who you are, you've already handed over the keys. And you don't need to be more emotional to be safe. You just need to recognize when someone's using morality as a weapon to tame you. Number 4, playing the victim always. This one's a masterclass in deflection. She plays the victim every time. You try to have a serious conversation, bring up something real, something that needs fixing, and instead of engaging, she collapses into tears, stories from her past, childhood wounds, emotional chaos. Suddenly, the spotlight's not on the issue anymore, it's on her pain. And just like that, you're off balance. You shift from accountability to damage control. You go from calling something out to calming her down. That's the trap. She hijacks the moment, turns every conflict into a sympathy session, every disagreement into proof that she's been wounded, misunderstood, mistreated. You started with a boundary, but now you're just holding her while she cries about something that happened 5 years ago. This isn't vulnerability, it's strategy. She's not sharing to connect. She's sharing to distract, to reroute the focus, to make sure you never stay on point long enough to hold her responsible for anything. And it works because you're a good man. You've got empathy. You want to protect, not hurt. So you step back, soften, and let it slide. But each time you do, you teach her that accountability can be dodged with tears, with trauma, with emotional overwhelm. You give up your position not because you're wrong, but because she's crying louder than you're speaking. And over time, that breaks you down. You stop bringing things up. You tolerate more. You walk on eggshells. Not because you're weak, but because compassion has been weaponized against you. And here's the thing, trauma doesn't excuse bad behavior. Pain isn't a free pass to hurt others. Being vulnerable doesn't mean being unaccountable. Real victims don't use their pain to silence the people they're hurting. They own it. They work through it. But when someone turns every conflict into a crisis, every boundary into a betrayal, what they're doing is building immunity to consequences. They keep the moral high ground by staying broken, and you, thinking you're being a good partner, end up carrying all the weight. But love isn't about constantly sacrificing your peace just to avoid triggering someone else's past. At some point, you have to recognize when someone's playing weak to stay powerful. That's not healing. That's manipulation in disguise. Number 5, comparing you to other men. This tactic cuts deep because it's designed to mess with your core, your confidence, your sense of self. She starts dropping comparisons, subtle at first, then sharper. My ex used to plan things without me asking. Other men wouldn't act like this. Maybe she brings up someone else's relationship. Maybe it's a fictional guy from a movie or some influencer's boyfriend on Instagram. Either way, the message is clear, you're not enough. And it's not constructive, it's psychological warfare. The goal isn't to inspire you, it's to unbalance you, to get inside your head and plant seeds of doubt. You start wondering if you're falling short. You start adjusting yourself, how you talk, how you show up, what you do, not because it feels right, but because you're chasing approval she keeps dangling just out of reach. You become reactive, constantly measuring yourself against some invisible, idealized version of what a man should be. And the more you chase that phantom standard, the more you lose your grounding. You stop being you. That's the whole point. These comparisons aren't about helping you grow. They're about breaking you down and reshaping you into someone more controllable, someone who constantly seeks validation instead of standing firm in their identity. And here's the kicker. No matter how much you change, it's never enough. Because the bar keeps moving. The other men she references, they're not real. They're tools. Weapons she pulls out when you start standing tall, speaking up, or acting in alignment with your own values. It's meant to destabilize you, keep you off center, so you stay in a constant loop, trying harder, giving more, proving your worth, while she holds the scoreboard. And as you morph into what she says she wants, you lose sight of who you are. But that's the cost of playing the comparison game. You trade authenticity for approval, and even when you win, you lose. Because real love doesn't require you to compete with ghosts from her past or fantasies in her head. A partner who respects you won't weaponize other men to manipulate your behavior. She'll want you, not a filtered version built from guilt and insecurity. Once you recognize the pattern, stop playing. You don't need to outdo her ex. You just need to outgrow the game. Number 6. Isolating you from your support circle. Isolation never starts loud. It starts with little comments, small looks, subtle jabs. Your friends are kind of immature, don't you think? Your mom always gives me that vibe, like she doesn't like me. Nothing overt, nothing you can really call out. But over time, it adds up. You start second-guessing your circle. Maybe your boys are too wild. Maybe your sister is a little cold. You begin to distance yourself, not because you want to, but because it just seems easier. Less friction, less drama. That's the plan. She's not asking you to cut people off. She's guiding you to do it yourself. Quietly, gradually, and soon, your circle starts shrinking. The group chats fade out. The calls to your mom get shorter. You stop sharing things with your closest people because she makes you feel like they don't get it, like they're working against the relationship instead of wanting the best for you. But here's the truth. The fewer voices around you, the louder hers becomes. And that's the goal. She doesn't want to compete with outside perspectives. She wants to be the only perspective, because when she's your sole emotional outlet, she controls the entire narrative. She becomes your compass, your mirror, your judge. No one's there to say, "Hey, that's not normal." No one's there to remind you who you were before this all started. And once you're fully isolated, you're vulnerable, not just emotionally, but mentally. You've lost your safety net, your sounding board, your reality check. Now it's just you and her, and every opinion, every choice, every value gets filtered through her lens. That's not love, that's control. A healthy partner encourages connection, wants you to have a strong crew, a solid family bond. Not because they're perfect, but because they keep you grounded. But when someone tries to cut those roots, it's not about us against the world. It's about turning you into a version of yourself that only exists in her world. And once you're cut off, there's no one left to pull you out. That's why isolation is the final move in the control playbook. It's how she makes sure there's no escape, no witness, no backup. The only way to break it is to rebuild your circle and trust your people again. Number 7, creating a chaos cycle. This is where it all starts to feel like a ride you can't get off, the chaos cycle. One day it's good, she's sweet, attentive, everything feels aligned. Then out of nowhere, the storm hits. An argument you didn't see coming. A blow-up over something minor. A full emotional detonation. You're blindsided, scrambling to understand what just happened. And just when you're about to walk, she flips the script. Apologies, tears, maybe even a little blame thrown your way. You pushed her, you misunderstood. But then she pulls you back in with love again. A good night, a deep conversation, maybe even incredible intimacy. And for a second, you think, maybe we're okay. That right there, that roller coaster, that's the trap. It's not just dysfunction. It's designed to keep your nervous system on edge. High alert, survival mode. You're constantly scanning for the next emotional landmine, the next shift in mood, the next fight you didn't see coming. And over time, you mistake that anxiety for passion. The chaos makes the rare moments of peace feel euphoric, like a reward. You start believing the highs are worth the lows, that the emotional whiplash is just part of deep love. But it's not love, it's trauma bonding. Your body becomes addicted to the swings, like a gambler chasing one more win. And while you're caught in that loop, she's doing something else, breaking you down. Little by little, the constant tension wears on you. You get quieter, more careful, less likely to speak your truth. Because you're tired. You don't want to set off another explosion. So you settle. You compromise your peace just to avoid chaos. And that's exactly the point. The emotional roller coaster isn't random. It's a system of control, a destabilization tactic. It keeps you distracted, disoriented, and too drained to push back. You think you're fighting for the relationship, but you're really just trying to survive it. And the longer you stay, the more your sense of normal gets warped. You start to believe this is just how intense love works. But real love isn't chaos. It doesn't keep you guessing. It builds, it steadies, it heals. If someone keeps you in survival mode, that's not passion, it's psychological warfare. And the only way off the ride is to stop confusing adrenaline with connection. Brother, if any of this hit home, know this: you're not alone. You're not weak. You're waking up. The truth is, most men don't even realize they're being controlled until they've lost years. But you don't have to be that man. You can rebuild your frame, your boundaries, your mission. That's why we built Stoic 95, to sharpen men, not soften them. We don't chase attention, we chase clarity. We don't seek comfort, we seek control of ourselves. If you're done being manipulated and ready to lead your own life, subscribe now. More content is coming that the world doesn't want men to hear, but you need it. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with a brother who needs it. Welcome to the movement.